Hello, I'm Travis Fontenot, the Executive Director here at the Dixie Center for the Arts. I want to thank you for being one of our supporters by watching this Theater Talk Tuesday series. These interviews give you an in depth, behind the scenes look at the many jobs in the performing arts world. These artists share their stories and journeys with us, the good and the bad, in hopes of inspiring you and giving you a deeper appreciation of the arts. Your support means everything to us, and we rely on patrons like you to help small nonprofits like us remain open for the future generations. To further help us, you can make a donation by clicking on the donation link in the video description. Thank you, and enjoy Theater Talk Tuesdays. Hey everyone, and welcome to another Theater Talk Tuesday. Today I am joined with Clayton Shelvin. He is the Performing Arts Director at the Acadiana Center for the Arts in Lafayette, Louisiana. Hey Clayton.
How's it going?
Oh, as well as can be expected in our line of work right now.
Right.
Right now, the current iteration of Theater Talk is talking to Louisiana artists, or artists originally from Louisiana. So where in the boot are you originally from?
Well, I grew up right here, kind of in the Acadiana region in a little town, Karen Crow. Represent. I'm always trying to represent for my little town. But yeah, just grew up in Lafayette and went away for a while, but have now come back after about 12 years. So very different place, but also very familiar at the same time.
But yeah, you didn't go too far, right? You were in New Orleans?
I spent most of my time in New Orleans. I had a little stint in Ohio, and I was also in New York for a bit. So kind of shifted around in my younger years. Use that term loosely. But yeah, most recently I've spent the past 10 years in New Orleans. So
Nice. And Karen Crow, translated to French, is buzzard.
but yes, home of the buzzards. Um, and they decided not to ever use that on mascots because they thought it was a bad omen. 'Cause all the bad juju would come because the black buzzards were like a sign of death and all those things. So I just learned that story about the high school that they were actually going to call the Karen Crow Buzzards, and then yep, didn't happen. Bad juju.
Yeah, it was good juju though for Mark Broussard. He is an amazing artist. He used Karen Crow, and actually, as the title of his album, he actually a picture of the water tower on his album,
Right.
and it did
Yeah.
very well for him. So.
Yeah. He and I went to school together. We were involved in all the arts things together. All the arts kids do. So yeah, he's still a good buddy of mine.
Good. It's so many amazing, talented people come out of Louisiana. It's wonderful to hear about those people and connect with everyone through this virtually. People I know and learn about other people through everyone. So you're originally from Louisiana. You're working in the arts.
Hmm.
You were in the arts in high school, as you just said. Where did that spark, that interest, that umph come from to be in the arts?
I was thinking back to this a few weeks ago, but I really, like growing up, I didn't know anyone that had like went to college or anyone that had like a job in the arts. It was always just I was surrounded by people who were kind of like just middle class, like working hard, working two or three jobs, and I just always had like this thing with music, and I had this connection with music that I didn't know what it meant. But once I got into high school and I was able to start like really exploring, I was in band and like marching band really kind of opened up a whole new world for me because it was like it was going out and performing, like entertaining, and that became just like I was obsessed. So from there, in high school, I just started trying everything that put me in that position to like entertain and be around it. So I joined theater. I did like color guard for a while, like or winter guards, like when they travel. Like I was a rifle twirler. Sounds so fancy. Um, and then started through that, really started developing in dance. So just like picked it up. I started picking it up really quickly. Didn't know what to do with it because of course like everyone's telling you like you gotta get a real job. You have to go to college and like get a degree, go be a doctor, one of those things. Um, But I think it was, I had some really great mentors in high school, like that were in the arts, pushing me. And I kind of go back to share like this little story that in high school I was able to go to this. It's this kind of like summer training thing for the young artists in New York, and like got off the plane, and of course I freaked out. Like went to Times Square. It was my first time going, and I saw this show. It was Cirque du Soleil. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I saw this. It was like a cheap ticket. I was like, I can't afford a Broadway ticket. I'm going to this, and walked into this Cirque du Soleil show, and was literally so mesmerized by like the lights and there was acrobats and there was singing and there was instruments, and it was like it was like my dream, right? It's all these things mixed together. So if anything that's had like a big inspiration on me, that pushed me to like really dive into the arts further, it was that experience of like seeing that show.
So you went to New York through an organization for a training of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Who was that organization?
Yeah, so it was the American Theater Wing at the time, and they had like a youth program. And so it was people like students from around the country that got to get together for like a week and like just kind of study under all these great artists. So like kind of if you quickly fast forward to my college career, they also have a college program. It's called Springboard that I actually went into and got a scholarship. And it's like this 2-week program, and you get to like study with all these Broadway actors and directors. And then moving forward, I was actually hired by them to come on, which is how I ended up in New York for a bit. So these guys, yeah.
I think we just lost some of that story with the technology.
Oh no.
It's fine. There's not much we can do. Oh, technology, COVID and trying to communicate through this, but
2020, that's where we're at.
Springboard in New York. I know other people who've gone through Springboard. It's an amazing opportunity in the American Theater Wing. The general population might not know who they are, but they're the organization behind the Tonys. They produce the Tony Awards. Theater, it's the Theater Awards, if you don't know. So you were also just mentioning your college career. What did you go to college for?
So I originally, this is quite the journey. I got a scholarship to go to Nichols State, and I went to school there originally to do nursing, which is what my mom does, and that's the only thing I kind of knew. And I knew I wanted to like help people in some way, and I was told that I couldn't major in the arts. So went there and immediately like was just like I knew I couldn't handle like my first class, the biology class, of just like dissecting something. I was like, this is not for me. I got my roommates all played lacrosse, and so I started like hanging out with them a lot, and they were like, we need a trainer, like we need a student trainer to like come along. So I was like, oh, this is like a degree program, right? Like doing sports medicine, which I found was like really cool. And it was like around a form of entertainment. I just at the time didn't even put all that together, but I was like, I get to be around this thing, right? And I get to be a part like of producing this big spectacle that happens. And was in that program for like the second semester through part of my sophomore year, and then just really like I started doing theater there at Nichols. And once I got back in the theater, it was like all over with. I was like, nope, not doing this. They didn't have a theater program, so the closest thing was their mass comm program. So I jumped into that, and then Katrina happened, and Katrina kind of forced everybody like went home. The school shut down for a while. Almost, it felt very much like what we're going through now. And while I was home, I got to go and see a play that UL was producing, and then I was like, they have a program. This is great. I get to be around these people. I get to do this all day. And so I transferred in my junior year, transferred from Nichols over to UL, which is where I graduated. And I got a degree in theater and also a dual degree in dance. So I was able to kind of like, live my best life out there in the theater and dance department, which is great.
Amazing. So you had a tumultuous journey to start out with. I've mentioned mine previously, but I was kind of the same. I started business, and 2 weeks in, wasn't happening. I was miserable.
2 weeks.
Immediate, 2 weeks. Immediately transferred over to theater and haven't looked back.
Yeah.
Like kind of like you said, it just felt right. It felt good. It clicked. It just, uh, you know, it's
Yeah,
really when I switched.
I think one of the things that, especially in high school, and maybe I think there's a little bit more of it now, but like in high school, no one talked to you about careers in the arts. Like it just seemed like it didn't exist. So like, I went in thinking that like, surely you can't major, you can't go to school for like dance or theater. So like, you have to just go do something and like be involved with those things on the side, like you were in high school. And yeah, I mean, luckily I was kind of like a very curious kid. Like in college, I kind of I like wrote for the newspaper. I was part of the yearbook um, program. Um, I was a cheerleader at one point in time. The first year I was at Nichols, I was in the marching band. I just did so much stuff and was like super involved and just got involved on campus. And I think all that just kind of led to where I'm at now. You know, and I know we're gonna dive probably deeper, but it's like kind of just being able to like do a whole bunch of things. You know,
Yeah. And everything you mentioned was creative in some way.
yeah,
So even working with the lacrosse team, you were a part of something bigger, which was entertaining people. You were behind the
yeah,
scenes essentially,
yeah,
um, as what a stagehand or someone would be in the realm of theater. You were behind the scenes and making sure things were going well,
yeah.
so that the entertainment could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how it all ties in together. You kind of draw naturally to those things. I think, it gets, I see so many like kids now that I work with a lot of students that just don't, uh, they can't piece all those things together. Even in college, they're just like, oh, blah, 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 but I'll just stay in my business degree, right? I'm just going to get a degree because I'm going to make money and I can do theater later. And I'm like, I just like that path. It's realistic for some people, but the path is just so tough because like your heart, I feel like people in the arts, and I don't want to like take away from any other career field, but like people in the arts, we just have to have that like emotional, that heart connection with what we do all day. And that's what makes, I think, artists really special. That's what makes creative people really special. um, and when you're fighting that, I think people are miserable. And I know a lot of people who, like have a lot of regrets about not pursuing their love. And I think that's almost anything you do, right? It's just like if medicine's really your love and you're not pursuing it, uh, I think it becomes very hard to just kind of like go through life because you're always thinking about that thing that you really love, you should be doing.
Yeah. I didn't have theater in high school either. We did, it was one class, it was like speech and theater. I
Hmm.
kept trying to apply to get into it for like a couple of years. I'd go, hey, I want this class. Hey, I want this class. I, oddly enough, never got in it. And yet here I am in
Yeah,
arts, but it was the same like you said. No one was there to tell you about career in the arts, careers in the arts, or what you could possibly do. Everyone just thinks it's on stage, it's
yeah,
acting. Part of these theater talks is to show there are many different sides to theater. There's more than one way into the arts in general. And it's not just about being on stage.
yeah,
I, in high school, did take a CNA class, so certified nursing assistant. And so my senior year, I was working as a CNA. And when I went to college, I was working in the hospital as a CNA. I
wow,
was making more money than people working at McDonald's, which was a blessing to me. And I was having to pay for school.
yeah,
Um, but it also, kind of like you, I always knew I wanted to be in service of someone. And so that was a way for me I was taking care of people. I
yeah,
was enriching their lives. There's a lot of empathy in it. Then I worked retail, and then I was a teacher. And then, it all kind of played into helping people,
yeah,
making people's lives a little better piece by piece. And so it's
yeah.
kind of always
People,
in service of others.
Yeah, people always tell me they're like, you should really write a book about all your jobs because my friends will always joke. They're like, oh my god, you did so many random things. It was like bartending. I mean, I've done so many like really crazy jobs. I worked in retail also. I was like at Express, where literally my job was like creating all the like the displays. Which for me, I was like, this is awesome because it's like I have a little bit of creative freedom. And little did I know, when I was complaining about all these jobs, it's like everything I've done. I worked in a hotel. All these things I've done have now I use every single day of my job today. which is blows my mind, you know.
I
So I think
attempt
it all. I think naturally we always kind of put ourselves where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I attempted to have a minor in hospitality management and tourism.
Of
I
course you
didn't,
did.
I didn't have to have a minor. In my degree program, we didn't have to have a minor. We took those hours and put them into a specialty or a concentration
Hmm.
in the realm of theater. But I was trying it anyway, and um, the class was supposed to go on a trip, and at the time I couldn't get the money for the trip because I'm paying for college myself and working, and so I ended up having to drop the class because I couldn't go on the trip, which was half the grade. The experience out there. But I did learn things while I did take that class about being in tourism, being in management and hospitality and dealing with people. And like you said, it all kind of plays in together.
Yeah.
So I did learn a few things in half the semester I was in that class, and I still kept up with the professor and looked on things she was sharing, and kind of got some information through that. It is so funny, like you said, how we kind of naturally gravitate and work in and around the things that will help us. I've said it in
And,
a previous interview. You have to build, like when one door closes, another opens, but you have to do those things and work and make those things to build that door.
yeah.
All your
Yeah.
job kind of put another nail, put another board into a door that you did not know would open one day. And it's kind of the same for me. Everything I've done fit together and was like, oh, here you go.
Right. Right. And I want to, like, before we even move on, like something that we had touched on just a while ago, but like it's part of the reason why I took my job currently. It wasn't for like the work I get to do. It was the work that like our organization does in schools with arts and education. And like the ACA is like super committed to making sure that every kid gets that. So we we hire teachers. The school board hires us to like hire arts teachers, and then we oversee all those teachers, and we make sure that every student that doesn't have like a theater program, doesn't have a dance program, that they have access to those things. And I think, like you and I just talking about stories, it's so important that we are keeping arts in our schools. I know it's like such a cliche thing that everyone's saying, but I think it makes such a difference. And I think without the arts in like schools, our kids are walking away missing out on this huge piece of discovering who they are and discovering talents. I mean, it's just something I truly, I'm like super passionate about now because, like Carrico High was really struggling to keep the arts programs there. Like, I mean, I think the theater program was like out the door, halfway out the door. They were like, Mark Broussard was really, he was part of kind of like that last boat of like having an actual vocal program. They had like a show choir and all these things. And all those things kind of fallen apart, and I don't know if people understand the true impact of like what students miss out on when you don't have theater, when you don't have dance, or you don't have music in our schools. And I think even this COVID time, the first thing already they're talking about is like, oh, we're gonna do the virtual classes, but we just won't worry about extracurricular, which is all those things. And I'm like, it's a mistake. It's such a mistake because all those extracurriculars connect back to like science and math and English, and I think that's something I've learned a lot about. Uh, theater helped me, theater and dance helped me with math 100%. I can tell you a million ways it did. I think like theater helped me to understand like history more and taught me about really geography. That's how I learned geography. Really, I couldn't capture it, but like tell me about a place that's in a play, and then I've got it. And I think just some students learn that way.
It is when you incorporate the arts into education, it unlocks things in your brain, in your mental capacity to hold things, to absorb things, to process things.
Yeah.
It helps you think outside the box. It helps you become more creative. And a lot of corporations, massive corporations, use people like you and I from the arts to do workshops and train their employees to get out of the box, to connect with people, it builds their self-confidence. And even if you're not working for a big corporation and you're at McDonald's asking if you would like fries with that, you're still dealing with people. You're still having to save face if someone's order is wrong and they come in and start yelling at you, you can't yell back. Uh,
Yeah.
you're acting. You have to save face, putting on a poker face, a game face, if you will, and you just got to maintain your composure and just and theater helps with some of those things in preparing you to interact, to talk to people, to carry yourself well, to interview well.
Yeah. Big
It's
time.
sports uses when their players give press conferences. They are usually coached by someone from within the arts or the speech realm, which ties very directly into theater arts. It's how to handle yourself. It plays into the world, and people just don't realize how much it plays into the world. And I hope some of these interviews show people just how much it does play into the world.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job. And what I take away from the arts all the time, and this is time and time after of the past 14 years of my life working with artists, like arts, it teaches people how to care about other people. It teaches you how to care about the world. It teaches us empathy. And I feel like artists are some of the people that really are the most open and the most they're willing to look at another culture or look at another lifestyle and say, you know what, I can learn something from that versus being afraid of it. And I think for me, it's why, my 2-year-old, I'm not going to push her, but I'm going to encourage her, because I do think it's important that I think that's how kids learn to work as a team, we were all in something as a kid.
So yeah, that was great talking about you wanting to encourage your daughter, but not push her. And I think that's wonderful. Just saying, encourage them, push them. Hey, go to this. See what it's about. If you like it, fantastic. If you don't, great. It's
she's. I mean, I consider her a lucky kid. Hate to say that, but already in her life, she gets to come to all the shows that we do, and she's kind of growing up in this theater that I work in. So I think what I've seen now from this 2.5-year old is that she understands how to sit in a theater and watch something without disturbing, because I think she's seeing everyone being quiet. And for me, it's amazing because I'm at home, she's nuts and she's crazy, but we go into that space.
I see your social media posts.
She's captivated.
So yeah, it's great that kids and the arts. I remember second grade songs in class. I still use them in my life. Somebody said something and it triggers that song from way back when in my head. It's really amazing the things that affects you that you don't realize, and it's all based in the arts.
It's the only stuff I remember. I mean, I don't know if that's a conscious choice, but I look back to even first and second grade. The only things I remember were plays and the music we sang in music class, and the special guests that came in to perform for us. I can't tell you anything else, about anything I learned in the book. But getting to experience some form of live performance or live art. I think those things create memories in all of us, adults, kids, that just allows us to be more open and allows us to think a little bit more outside the box,
Yeah. I remember in middle school, we would go to a different school and watch a traveling play. That company is still around, still traveling. They have 7 shows and they rotate them. So they do one a year, and then when they finish, they do them again. And they're really great shows. It's a very small company, but I remember watching Pinocchio, and I remember watching his nose grow on stage, and sitting there as a kid, I don't know, 3rd, 4th grade maybe, thinking, how did that happen?
Right.
So it got my brain thinking, and it's there's mechanics and such behind it, which that's playing into the arts. There's engineering, there's mechanics, there's building, there's sometimes science behind things. If they use special effects like smoke, or and then another show I saw was Rumpelstiltskin. It's an R.
Oh yeah.
And the gold string was flying off the spindle. I still don't know how they pulled that particular one off. But as I'm a 4th or 5th grader, my mind's not watching everything. It was probably so simple. I don't remember, but there's those things in my mind. I wanted to know how to break it down, how it worked, why it happened, which starts breaking down into science, into math, into
Yeah.
mechanics, into
And it's
everything.
all magical, man, because that's what makes you want to go and like learn more. I'd say in college, I was never one person that like picked up a book and decided to like voluntarily read something. But if I like went to a show or went to something, I was like, wait, I just heard this fact. I remember we did a show about the in college about the plague, the bubonic plague, and it's really something that like I didn't know a lot of the details. I didn't know. There's just so much I didn't know until like we did this play, and I found myself like getting books for the first time in my life because I was like so interested in wanting to learn about that period and learn about like the people that died and all these things. I'm like, this is where it's at. Like this is how we should be teaching our kids, because um, when you see it, and now even this next generation, they're even more visual than we were. Like when you see it and it's there in front of you, then I think it's like, okay, now I can go and like learn more because they captivated me.
It's proven that you absorb better when something is presented to you visually.
Yeah.
Watching a play and it's mostly fact and it are presented in such a way, you absorb so much of it. Most interviews we end up talking about Hamilton, and now the show Hamilton, because so many people can see it. It's such a phenomenon. It's art accessible in your home right now. It's not 100% factual, right? But you get the main of their story. The reason he wanted to write about Hamilton is there were no real stories out there about Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
We know about other founding fathers, but we didn't know about one in particular. And so even though it's not 100% factual, you do learn so much from that show just based on listening.
Yeah. And then you want to like, I mean, right behind me, I had like the Hamilton book. I bought it because all of a sudden I wanted to really know the real history, and I had a friend like kind of arguing with me the other day about Beyonce's new visual album, and it was like, yeah, but like there's so many things about like African history that were not like accurate, and I was like, that's art, because guess what? Now she has sparked. We're all really wanting to know the facts. We all want to know like like what was life like for a lot of these like African kings and prince and queens, and what was life like before we only talked about slavery, right? Because I think before that, no one knows a lot about African history. It's not something that's taught in schools a lot. So, yeah, I think that's just the power of art, man. It's long lasting.
It is, a lot of things are inspired by true events, and that little bit of glimpse into something hopefully will ignite something in someone for them to go and find out more.
Yeah.
As
That's
what
we
I
want.
these interviews do. They hear something and they like, I didn't know that was existed. It's like, I didn't know arts administration was a thing until I was researching degrees for grad school, and I saw
what to do with my job. Yeah. What to do with my
and I was like, I was like, this is a thing. And then I started looking more into it, and so something came across my path and it inspired me and I looked more into it. So Hamilton, Beyonce's Black is King, other things hopefully can inspire students, young adults even, to just pick up a book or research more into something, and just learn something. It's it's funny. I kind of get that way with every show I'm involved with, is learning, getting a book about it. So I'm just learning more at what that was, because a lot of theater has nuggets of truth in it. Every play is written about a certain time. The Crucible, a lot of people know the Crucible because it's usually read in high school. And it was a commentary on the current times. It's not 100% factual of history. The characters were real, but they weren't writing things down. We don't know what they really did, but it was using the time frame. So if you study history, and when the playwright wrote it, you see the correlation of the blackballing going on, and all those things. It's history. We've all covered it in high school, most of us, so we won't go into it, but it's, it intrigued me when I did another version of it when I taught in high school. We did a point of view from the teenagers, the girls involved. their behind the scenes, which brought
Right.
up other interesting things. But it brought it up like, hey, what is someone else's perspective in this? It's really great when it opens doors and lets people delve deeper into whatever story.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about it forever because I think it's just so prevalent in every aspect of like my life. And then you look around and I've been saying this like, this COVID, this whole like being at home thing. I'm working from home. My husband's working from home. Like everyone I know is working from home. Um, it's allowed me to like dive deeper into like art that because I work in the arts, I don't get a chance to like see stuff, but you see like the importance in it because this is the arts are what people have relied on to get them through these like very long days at home. A lot of people, very long weeks and months of having no job. When people, people laying in bed sick from this virus. I mean, everyone's turning to what's happening on Netflix. They're turning into what are the latest like CD release, album releases on iTunes. Like that's all we have, And I think it's ironic that it's we look at like the live entertainment industry, which is probably will be the last industry to open. We look at the arts in general, which are usually underfunded. But in the big scope of things, it's like it is the thing we need because without that, I feel like you'd have a bunch of people going insane. Like what would you be doing at your house for 6 weeks? Without any art,
It's
eating and getting fat. That's basically what I would be doing.
I mean, that's still happening, but it would probably be much more prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. So many people relied on it, and if we studied theater history, there's all the memes around, and it's talking about theater has been a dying art since day one. So many monarchies, so many dictatorships throughout history tried to suppress it. They thought actors would use their chameleon-like talent to fool the government and overthrow them. And they've made it illegal before, but it's always persevered because people love it. People know the value of it. I mean, the Greeks built theaters that sat almost 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Government shut down. It was for like a week or so for different festivals. Nothing would go on the markets. Everyone would come out because it was such a community thing. They valued it. And
I think people and over time the reason why we have all this like suppression and like shutdowns is because I think governments and everyone understands the power of what it's like to put people in a setting where they're at a concert or like a theatrical production. Whatever is happening on stage, I mean, it has the power to like move and really shift people to think differently. I mean, you think about like Shakespeare, it was so controversial back in the day because he was, I mean, through his work, he was challenging like the roles of women. He was challenging the roles of like government of the monarchy, and it was terrifying. But the fact that we're still talking about Shakespeare, longer than any other author writer that we can really think of. I mean, that's a lot of power, and his work is still shifting how we think about things and how we approach life. And I think it's fascinating.
yeah, his stories are actually still very prevalent.
Very, very, yeah.
It's funny. History is just repeating itself through and through. His shows and other shows as well. It's funny how the art's just it's there, it's the backbone, it tells the story of what was going on. Imagine playwrights 20-30 years down the road, if we're looking back, what art is going to come out of the current times. What are they going to write about? How is this going to be portrayed? It's kind of crazy.
Interesting.
In times like this, people rely on art and they create, they write poetry, they paint, they act. People have been doing little short things on social media, little dances and songs and clips, and people have just been trying to find a way to release whatever is going on, a little catharsis, if you will. Ultimately, that's what a show is, and for us, performing arts is about a catharsis, kind of a cleansing. It's just getting something out.
And then I think even more importantly, like what's happening right now, all these artists, all of us, we're preserving history. We're archiving history. We're preserving it. We're telling the story. Because as of right now, the only people who are like capturing what's going on, you think about it, it's like photographers. You think about these artists who are painting these murals, during the Black Lives Matter movement. You think about like all these things are capturing these moments for us, um, to be kind of like studied and talked about in the future.
Yeah, it's some great things coming out of the current times. It's forcing people to be creative and think out of the box.
Yep.
So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the plays and what kind of art, performance art, comes out of this. So, after college,
Yeah.
what's your story after college? How did you get from there to where you are now?
Yeah. So after college, I went. I went immediately to Ohio, this little university, Muskingum University, and they hired me to like work in student life there, and it was great. And I started like working on my master's, um, and it was always going to be arts administration. Like I figured out by that time that like I wasn't interested in like really. I wasn't interested in like being on stage. I didn't want to like be a star. By the time I graduated, I was like, I love directing and I love like producing. I love kind of being the person that like organizes all this. Um, so went there for like literally it was a year, and I just was miserable. I mean, I was in this very tiny town. It was like an Amish town basically, um, and the people I worked with were great, but like it was just there was just nothing going on, and I realized quickly I was just like I can't be here. Um, so I came back to Louisiana for a bit, and then decided I was going to go up to New York, and kind of lived out a little fantasy out there, which I got to like just like work on with these random dance companies, and did some work with some theater companies, um, and was up there for about 2 years, and then of course like New York does, they just reality check of like, oh my God, I'm eating pizza every day. I can't afford anything. I live with 6 people. Um, it was all that. It was fun, but then I realized when it was like time to like figure the rest of my life out. So then I went back to New Orleans. I went to New Orleans, and from there, like finished school, found this whole like new world that was really this really thriving theater community there. There was this really thriving dance community. Of course, like New Orleans is known for their music, and I was like, man, like I've lived 2 hours from this my whole life, and I didn't know like how much was here. Like you're in one of the culture capitals of the world, really. And quickly I realized like my first year there, I was like, everyone is coming to New Orleans because they want to be a part of this. They want to like touch this. And I live here and I get to do this every day. Um, so I get to New Orleans, I'm bartending because that was like I'd been doing that and I was just looking for a job, and fell into bartending at this really glamorous hotel at the Hotel Montelion. And I was working at the Carousel Bar, which is like art in itself, and just started meeting I got to meet all these celebrities, and it was kind of like this hub for like where people who were filming movies and musicians were coming. I met Bill Clinton there. I was just constantly surrounded by like all the people I admired on TV and all the people I admired in music, and like loved my time there. While I was doing that, I was still, of course, like I was in college and high school, I was just involved with a bunch of different things. I was starting to direct in town. People finally had like saw me as like a director and a choreographer, and that led to me getting a job working over at Tulane University. So I left the hotel at the bar and started teaching at Tulane. And from there, I mean, just to shorten the story, I worked at Tulane. I taught classes there, started teaching some classes at Loyola University, taught classes at Dillard University. I quickly realized that there were not a lot of people like me who had the skill set that I had, which was like that real mix between theater and dance, and knowing like a lot about like just arts administration, about producing art in general. So I was constantly getting hired to like teach, and I spent most of my time in New Orleans doing that, like teaching on a university level, and just learned a lot. I mean, I think I learned more than my students learned because I was constantly just learning about this like next generation, learning about all the things that are happening in the world, like the kids do. They keep you in check with everything that's going on. Um, yeah, and then kind of fast forward to doing all these jobs, which landed me my biggest. I say my biggest role. That's what I was about to say. But kind of the work I did the longest there was working at this little theater, Le Petit Theater, and Le Petit is this 100-plus-year-old theater in the French Quarter. They've been producing theater there for over 100 years. And it's just, I feel like it's just this little jewel box in the middle of the French Quarter that not a lot of people know. It's like, I mean, I would go to my office and you can look and you're next to Jackson Square. So you hear the bells, you see the people. It was like my dream job. I was hired there. I worked as the associate producer for a few years there, and just had a blast. I got to direct, I got to choreograph, I got to do development, which is a thing I fell into, of like grant writing and raising money. It was a small staff, so we were all just kind of like all hands on. I was writing contracts. I learned about like facility management. It was a historic building, so there was parts of the building that were literally collapsing because it'd been around. I think since the building itself had been around since like the early 1800s. So then learned about like all these like historic rules and laws with buildings. Just like my biggest teacher in my career has been that place, and I'm thankful. I met some amazing people there. And yeah, and just a little fast forward, my husband and I just were thinking about like, man, we just had a kid, we just adopted our kid, we kind of need a break. New Orleans is really expensive, and like we have some future plans that we have, but we know to get there, we need to just like have a break from the city, from the expenses. So we just started looking at like maybe this may be a cool time to be close to like our family. We have a kid, we need some help, and this job in Lafayette like popped up. Actually, it was one of my old students from Loyola who called me and said, "Hey, Mr. Shelvin, there's a job opening, and I just think you'd be awesome for it." Hadn't heard from this kid since I taught him, but he was like, "I think you should apply." And I applied, and a couple of weeks later, we were like packing our stuff up, and we moved to Lafayette and took the job. So it's there's like hills and valleys. It was definitely not all pretty. But I'm thankful for my journey. I think now, as I kind of mentioned earlier, like the things I do in my job today, I'm doing development. I'm doing like hospitality management. I'm booking shows. I'm directing. I'm producing. I manage our tech team. I'm working with our front of the house guest services. It's just like all these pieces. These are all things that like I did at some aspect of my jobs before, and it can be overwhelming because I do every day. I'm like managing all these pieces, but I consider this like my dream job, right? I get to wake up every day. I'm surrounded by artists. I'm surrounded by art. I get to produce every day. And then when we have bad days, like in the arts, I have a job where I can just kind of like shut down and I just like recharge myself, because it's like, it's what we do. It's what we do as artists. So yeah, that's the short version, even though it was very long.
It's, I think, a theme in all the things we've talked about, with all the interviews I've done so far, is no one's path is wide and easy. It's not. We've all had our ups and downs, our curves, our hills and valleys. There's been no direct true path for anyone. And I think that's a great thing to take from these. If anyone's thinking of just going into the arts, pursuing it as a hobby, a career, it has its trials and tribulations. It truly does. And as you listen to Clayton's story, he has a lot of diverse skills. He sought out different things. He learned the different aspects of the business, which every single person we've interviewed has said. So every time I reiterate, learn all the aspects you can in the arts. If you don't go into the arts, learn whatever aspects you can in whatever field you go in. It makes yourselves indispensable, and it helps build you a more knowledgeable, in-depth person, and it'll make you that much better at whatever job you do pursue.
Yeah. And you know, I've noticed even like when I have like applied for jobs, um, like people will say things like, you know, I know this job description, like we're looking for a unicorn, and then I'm like, no, I'm the unicorn. Look, like yes, I've done fundraising. Yes, I've done like it's I I didn't plan it this way, right? But I think I allowed my and it sounds really cheesy, but I did allow my heart to just kind of like guide me in a bunch of different places. My friends, most of my friends are like in the medical field or lawyer. Like there are people who just like had this one path and they were like, I'm
Big
gonna go to school. Yeah,
jobs.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm going to school, get this degree, get my job, get my certification, whatever it is. And then that's it. And they all laughed at me. And I'm like, but man, like in the arts, because the path is so wild and you have to be a jack of all trades. Like I understand now that like if there's something I can't do tomorrow. So like let's talk about like right now technology because it's shifting so much. I mean, all this virtual. We're currently at the ACA. We're now building a like live stream kind of like studio because that is the future of what we're going to be able to do over the next year. And so I'm like now learning about you know all this stuff like video coders and like all these things that I never wanted to know about. But you kind of get left behind, you know, because then you quickly realize if you can't do it, someone else is going to come behind you and do it.
Yeah. It's the
Um,
arts, we're always trying to innovate for the people that are coming.
yeah,
You know, we have our patrons right now, we love them, we cherish them, you know, but it's always, if we don't try to seek new patrons or inspire younger people, we won't have anyone coming into our doors in the next few years and in 10 years and 15 years. You know, we've got to always look forward to how can we get more people inspired in the arts, and we've just got to stay
yeah.
on top of it. You know, ACA is a lot bigger than who we are. You know, I'm the executive director. I'm the only employee. We have a couple of contract people who help. They work the books, really and truly, and then my technical director is contracted. He shows up for the events. I don't have a team behind the
Mhm.
scenes, backstage. I don't have stagehands and all that. We usually, if I need them, I hire contract from the local university, get some college kids in. You know, we truly do those things. I don't have a built-in team. We use interns.
Yeah, it's grassroots. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I truly love using the interns and trying to get them more experiences. Most of them don't want to work in the arts, which is it's fantastic. They're I'm fine with that. They're learning skills with us that'll translate into whatever field they do go in.
Right.
Um, but it's so vastly different what we do, but yet our mission is the same. How our businesses are built are very different, but we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to inspire. We're trying to get new people. People are like, "Are you going to start streaming things?" And I was like, "I, we don't have those resources. We don't
Yeah.
have people. We don't have the money. We don't have the equipment. And you know, I'm not going to put my phone camera up there and try to live stream a concert. The quality is just not good. I also have to look
Yeah.
at, and what I'm delivering to you is the quality
Quality.
what
Yeah.
I want our name attached to." You know, and so this
Yeah.
year all my plans went out the window. I know yours kind of have too. We do a lot of the same things. We hire,
Yeah.
we look. um, Last I saw you was in Orlando at a conference. You know, we were there trying to look at new talent. um, and we got people from there, but
Yeah.
it's, will we have those concerts this year? Well,
It's
it won't
shifted
be a
so much.
normal year for sure, but the arts have persevered. We will persevere.
Yeah.
And you know, we that's what theater's always done, and the performing arts in general.
I mean, it's who we are, you know. I think the reason why you don't hear like so much noise from artists right now is because I think most artists, this is like the nature of the job. It's like, you know, tomorrow you may not have a job and then you have to just figure out what to do next. And I've been seeing like all my artist friends, like they're just being innovative and like figuring out ways. It's like at the end of the day, you still have to pay your bills and you still got to eat. And I think of anyone in this country that can figure that out, it is artists. You know, of like how do we make it through this? And I always just find any opportunity I can. I know you've probably been saying the same thing. It's like I think the general public just needs to really, and this is the moment. If you've ever wanted to support artists, you want to buy merchandise, you want to like buy albums, you want to whatever you can do, go in their Venmo and like drop a few dollars. Like if there's any moment that we need you to do that, it's now, because we're moving. There's a whole lot of things going on, but I think now with the unemployment benefits being kind of like shift, that was the only way a lot of artists were surviving. Without that, we're gonna have an entire country full of artists who are looking for jobs that they're not qualified for because most of us don't want to. Like I mean, I'm never gonna try to go look for a job doing like I don't know, I can't even think of what, but you know, anything in, like not working in science or working in a lab or those like never mind, I don't want me to go there, but
No, I mean, we
yeah,
we possess a certain amount of skills,
yeah,
and it's sometimes we can use some of those skills. Let's just say we go work in construction,
yeah,
right? There are tons of things happening around here in construction. Can I just go on a construction site and start working? Probably not. Like I know how to use power tools, but the majority of skills I have would probably be better served working directly with the people who, like in the office. Yes,
yeah, yeah,
I can build, I can do those things, but it's hard to translate working from in the performing arts into a quote unquote regular field, a blue collar type field,
yeah, yeah,
which is a lot of what's people are trying to do.
yeah.
It's
And people being forced to do, I think that's it's hard. And then you have a whole bunch of people again. Like I don't want someone I don't want the chef at my restaurant to be you know my artist friend who just like need a job. I want the chef to be someone who was like trained to cook and to produce quality food that I'm going to pay for. So I think it's no different than like in the arts, right? It's just you want people doing what they love because that's what makes that's what makes our country really awesome because
and
you
the
have people who are doing the things that they love to do and they're passionate about it and they're bringing that passion to the world.
yeah, and the artists are self-employed.
Yeah,
Nearly
yeah,
every artist I know, whether it's visual, performing arts, creative arts, anything, is self-employed. They're independent contractors.
right.
They're not working for a bigger corporation. So their paycheck comes directly from the gigs they do, the art they sell, whatever they do. Like you and I work for a bigger umbrella. We both work for an entity. So our jobs right now are theoretically stable.
For now, right? I think
For
that's
now, I mean, it depends on how long the shutdowns are.
yeah,
Our businesses might have to cut back somewhere.
yep,
Where they usually cut back employees. I'm the
yep,
only employee. That doesn't matter. They could cut me. It is the fact in the times we live in.
yep.
Um, but it's yeah, we will persevere and
Yeah, we will. And I just think people, in the meantime, like, just that's what I tell everyone. If people are like, what can we do? I'm like, find artists that you love, go support them, and you can support them by buying their stuff. Um, like even I mean, at the ACA, we've just been doing these surveys to figure out like what the artists in our community need. Most people have been saying like, we're having trouble just getting meals, which is like mind blowing, right? We live in this country and we have working people who provide entertainment, who provide like they provide a service to the community, and they're big. And I mean, you live in Acadiana, like the culture in Acadiana is vital to what this place is, and those musicians and those visual artists, like those people contribute heavily to that. So when I hear that like those people in my community are having trouble eating, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal, and I think this is where it's like we have to have communities coming together and like not forgetting about those people that have provided such a like those people have made Lafayette a awesome place to live. They've made Lafayette a great family place to live. They've made Lafayette a place that's known around the world, right? Because other than that, we just be any other little town, really. But I think because of the music, because of the food, like people around the world visit us and they know where we are. Um, so I think the community has to keep that in mind, and remember that there's a lot of people still suffering during pandemic, and I think it's a little scary, but I think we're starting to see a little bit of light in the middle of all of this.
Let's hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, one final question. If you had any advice to give someone who is pursuing a career in the arts, what would you give?
Hmm. I would say, I mean, the things we talked about, but I would say do all of the things that you want to do. I think there's like from what I learned. I mean, I'm learning to say no now because I'm grown now. but but I think in my 20s especially, it was like just try things and like say yes. Like I feel like that's such a time to really just open your mind up, travel, experiment, just do things. I mean, I luckily was able to, and I was one of those people who just was okay with doing it alone. I just started traveling alone. I wanted to like go to Europe. I wanted to go to these places, and I would just save up, and then I'd go and take a trip, and then I'd meet people. You meet people. I have friends to this day from Germany, from France, like people that I still talk to on social media that I met just by like traveling. I think those things just open you up to not only so many different like to the world, but it opens you up to like possibilities that you may not have thought were realistic. You know, so I mean, I think that's my biggest piece of advice, and I think the other part is just for me it was like important to surround myself with like people I consider mentors, and I had some really amazing mentors in my life who, when I was like doubting my talent or doubting my skills, they were like, no, let me just remind you, you're important, you're going to be of value to this field one day. Um, and it's really what has pushed me to stay in, because I think other than that, I would have been one of those people who would have just said like, I'm just gonna get a nursing degree and like I'll do art on the side, And I think now like what type of life I would probably have lived if that would have been my reality, knowing all along that this is where I should be. So find people that will push you and encourage you, and people that are in the field, because I think that's the best way to learn.
Absolutely. Mentors are a massive part of a support structure. I've had those moments too where I've doubted myself. I've, questioned my skills,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd call and just pour my heart out. And they're like, "You got that out your system? Good. Now, remember what you learned. Remember this. We all have good days, we all have bad days. And also, at the end of the day, I had to remind myself, I know what I'm capable of. I
Mm-hmm.
know what I can do. It was just a rough day,
Yep.
and those mentors are there. If career related, if not, try to find someone that's just a good friend and vent.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all have those moments, and sometimes those friends, even though they're not in the same business as you, they want you to succeed, and they'll be there to ultimately support you and say, look, man, girl, guy, go for it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Clayton, for
Thank
giving me
you,
your time
Travis.
today and your knowledge. It's good seeing you. It's been almost,
So good to see you. I know.
it's been a year almost.
Well, we were together in October, yeah, in
October.
Orlando.
Yeah,
So
I'm a little
I,
off.
but it's almost a year. I mean, it's crazy to think
9
about.
months.
Um, but yeah, I hope. I mean, I hope everything at the Dixie is going great, and I actually can't wait to go visit. When things open up again, so we can, so
Oh,
I can actually go see a show there. So
absolutely. I'd love to have you guys. Uh, I need to go visit ACA.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's been a minute since I've been to the ACA. But like you, ACA is located downtown, just like us. So
hmm
both our venues play an integral part of the stamp, the thumbprint
yeah.
in our downtown area. So I wish you the best of luck, the ACA the best of luck, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Clayton.